So let's keep this party going. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is loans. Loans, that horrible 5-letter word, excuse me. Law school is an investment, right? And unfortunately, you might have to get some loans. It just is what it is. But I would rather have loans for my law school education than loans for a car or loans for anything. I would rather have loans for my education than a Victoria's Secret credit card and be in debt that way. No shade to Victoria's Secret or anything, but I'm just saying, like, it's an investment, and a lot of times you are going to have to get loans for law school. But the good thing about law school loans, and something that you need to know, and something that might help you not stress about it too much, is that a lot of times you get approved for federal loans, which have way better interest rates than private loans. And the second good thing for all of my college students and people that recently did like FAFSA or what have you, your parents don't have to be listed on your FAFSA. So what does that mean? You have a way better chance of getting grants and other things, and you can have a way better chance of like work study because you don't have to include your parents' income. And so it's no longer a Parent Plus loan, it's just a Grad Plus loan, and it's just your information. So that was the first thing that I want to say about loans. The second thing is do a credit check. So right after you get accepted into law school, do a credit check. Why? Because when it comes to time to get that loan from the federal government, they are going to look all into your background. They want to see if you're going to be able to pay them back, if you've paid people back in the past. So if there's some things on your credit report right now that you can afford to get off of your credit, please do so. And I'm talking about little things. There was a student who, for example, she had a $3 Blockbuster bill on her account. She was doing law as a second career, obviously, being that she had a bill from Blockbuster. They've been closed for a while now. But she had a $3 Blockbuster bill. She had no idea it was on there, but that held her up with getting approved for her federal loan. So run a credit check, see what's on there, make sure everything is correct, for one, and to get rid of anything that you can that shouldn't be on there. Because that is something that they will look at in regards to your loan opportunity. The next thing relating to loans. For my people that have had to do bankruptcies, for example, you might be scared about that, or you might be thinking about doing a bankruptcy. And I totally get it. I know a lot of people who have had to file for bankruptcy, and honestly, that could be a good thing depending on your situation to get out of it. So I say all that to say that's something that they will consider. Now, if your bankruptcy is more than 7 years old and it's been dismissed, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. But if you just filed for bankruptcy a year ago and obviously you're still going through that process, they might require you to have a cosigner. But regardless, please don't let that stop you from going to law school. There's other options as far as funding for law school. So if that's what's keeping you from applying or what have you, then please, there's ways around it. There's other loan options available. So yeah, don't let that stop you from law school. Let's see, we have a few questions. Candace, the Lsat is scary to me as well. I totally get it. So Candace asks, what is the best way to study for the Lsat? Like I said earlier, law school is an investment. It's a huge investment. You have to pay a little money up front before you actually start law school to really get ahead. So if I were you, I would get enrolled in the Lsat prep class, hands down. And what I do as a law school coach is help you figure out which program is best for you, and help you figure out that study plan once you get enrolled in an LSAT class. Because I think if you're trying to do it solely on your own, you're missing out on so much opportunities for scholarship and what have you, unless you're just like super bright when it comes to the LSAT. And the second thing that I'll say is practice, practice, practice. You have to do as many practice tests as you can and look at those answers and explanations. Sorry I'm late. What law school did you choose and why? Also, what was your undergrad major? So I went to Mercer University School of Law in Macon, Georgia, which is about an hour and a half from Atlanta. And being that it was an hour and a half from Atlanta was one of the reasons that I chose it. Another reason that I chose it was because of the scholarship opportunity that they presented. And something else that really stood out was the location. Way cheaper to live in Macon than Atlanta. And another thing was one of Mercer's professors, he came to Hampton almost every year faithfully. He talked with us and really helped me on my way to law school. So those are my reasons. And I went to Hampton University, as I mentioned earlier. All right, let's jump back in and I'll come back to the questions in a minute. So let's talk about moving. So you've been accepted, you've paid your seat deposit, you're starting to save money. Now it's time to actually go to where the school is located. Maybe it's in your city, maybe it's 500 miles away. And it's time to go there and figure out where you're going to live. So some schools have housing options available that would be included in your bill. Not a lot of law schools, but some do have that. But for most schools, a lot of the graduate students, law students, medical students, they just have apartments, like just how you would go sign for an apartment anywhere else. So when it comes to that, I would strongly consider moving at least 2 weeks before classes start. And if you can, a month before. And why is that? Get a chance to know the area. The worst thing that can happen, and this was several students in my first year class. They literally, one girl, I remember, she was still moving. Like she hadn't even gotten into her apartment yet on the first day of orientation. And so she was a little flustered. You know, she had a lot going on, trying to get settled. But when you start day one, you don't want to have to worry about any of that. You want to be unpacked. You want to have everything nice and set up. You want to know where the grocery store is. You know, like you want to have all this figured out. You want to know where you're going to get your hair done or whatever. Like move at least 2 weeks in advance. If not, I would do so within at least a week. Like just give yourself some time to get to the area and get settled. Second thing, and this is very, very important. If you have not been listening so far, this is the point to really tune in. Move somewhere that is quiet, like quiet. Move somewhere where it's like your neighbors are like old people that go to sleep at 8 o'clock every night. Do not move to College Town. Do not move somewhere where it's like right near the highway and there's constant like, you know, noise from on the streets or whatever. Like do yourself a favor, find somewhere that is really quiet. So, my first year of law school, I found this really, really cute apartment in downtown Macon. So if you're familiar with Macon at all, it's a very historic city. So there's a lot of older houses. And what happened was a lot of people came in and renovated those houses. And I lucked up and found a brand new renovated house, and it was divided into apartments. So found the apartment, loved it. It was everything that I needed. It was less than 5 minutes from the law school, and I could walk there, which I definitely suggest being close to the law school. So everything was great. And then next thing you know, my neighbors are having parties at all times of the night. And I'm like, what in the world? Like, these people must not be in law school because you don't have time for that. So long story short, if you're going to get a renovated house, make sure the walls aren't thin. And if it's an older home, then most likely the walls are still very thin. And found a landlord who will actually do something about your neighbors who are just up all types of the night making noise. So that was my first thing when it comes to moving and finding an apartment. Consider rooming with another law student or a medical student, someone who is just as busy as you are. Someone, when they come home, they just want quiet. They just want to go to sleep. They ain't having too much company over. Consider someone who is just like I said, just as busy as you are, because the worst thing is to have roommates who are up all times of the night because they don't have anywhere to be tomorrow. So those are things you want to consider when it comes to selecting a roommate. As for me, I couldn't have a roommate. Like, I loved my college roommates. Like, I didn't have any major issues or anything. But going into law school, I just wanted to be by myself. I knew this would be a time in my life where I would really need to just focus and just not have anything else to worry about. Because like I said, the worst thing for a law student is for you to come home after a long day of studying, and you come home and there's dishes everywhere, the house is dirty, and it's all because you're a roommate. Like, that's just something I didn't want to even have to deal with, because it's, if you, as much ways as possible, you need to eliminate stress. Like, law school is going to be stressful enough, so just don't even put yourself in situations where it could be stressful as a law student. So, but it's a weighing thing, because, you know, if you have a roommate, especially like you go to law school in Macon, Georgia, your rent might, if you have like 2 roommates, for example, your rent could be $900, and you split that 3 ways, which is awesome, like less than $300 a month per person. But if you're like me and you need your 1 bedroom, your rent in Macon, for example, it's going to be like almost $800 a month. So those are things to consider also when you're taking out loans, like how much you're willing to pay back once you graduate. All right, so that was the next topic relating to moving. Let's see. How far in advance should you start studying for the Lsat? So, self-study effective. So honestly, it really depends on you. So I know some people, for example, you know, they study for 2 months before and they do just fine. But there's others who have a lot going on in their life. You know, they have kids or a husband or a wife, or, you know, they have a full-time job, so they can't dedicate as many hours as they would like in a shorter period of time. So if that's you, then you might need to study for 6 months, or you might want to do it over a year just so you can really prepare yourself. Because, for example, you might only be able to study 2 days out of the week or 1 day out of the week. So it really just depends on where you are and what you can do. If you're studying for 2 months, I would suggest you need to have like 3 or 4 days where you're studying for like at least 4 hours a day. Practice is key. And also like I mentioned earlier, if you get enrolled in a prep course, which I strongly suggest, they will let you know how often and that you should be studying. And that's something that I can work with you on as well. Thank you for creating this video. Oh, no problem. I love speaking with you guys. I love doing this. Like, I wouldn't have it any other way. I graduated 2 years ago from University of Maryland and work in DC. How do you transition from working full-time to law school without the same salary? Will financial aid be enough to pay bills? Great question. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was, you know what? That was a great segue. That was a great segue into my next topic, because my next topic is paying bills. So obviously you have to pay bills. You can't be homeless in law school. So the thing about law school, which I think a lot of people don't realize, is you get money for your living expenses, just like you do at most colleges. So when I was at Hampton, I got a refund check, and that was how I paid my rent every month. And same thing in law school. You know, being that I came to law school right after undergrad, I didn't have as much loans. I mean, not loans. I didn't have as many bills as someone who was actually in the profession for a few years and decided to go to law school. But I do know several people who had amazing jobs, and then they decided to go to law school, and they had more bills and things that I didn't necessarily have. But even that being the case, they were able to get living expenses included in their refund check, so that they could take care of things that I didn't. So like, for example, if you have like a monthly car note, I didn't have a monthly car note, or just different things that you have going on that you have to pay for every month. Your law school can work with you. So to break that down a little further, you get, like I said, you get a refund check just like you do in college. So when I was in law school, every semester I got about like $10,000. Like, it was definitely reasonable, and I just divided that money up. This portion was for rent, you know, this portion was for car insurance, this portion, you know, was for electricity or whatever. But being that the apartment that I chose to live in was a little bit more than what they budgeted